just wanted to do a quick video. I am working on an ebook for a client. I did not do the interior for this. He had approached me just to do the ebook because he has a niece who works for Simon and Schuster, and she did the print book for him, but she did not know how to do the ebook. So I just finished setting up the ebook, and I am about to export it again. And I wanted to walk you through some of the things that I do when cleaning up an ebook. I think sometimes if you see something over and over in different cases, it kind of starts clicking. So I wanted to share this one with you because this book is slightly different in that it has a lot of images, and it will be good to see what I do to optimize those images because we will really want to get the file size down. So I just generated the PDF or the EPUB. Need to make one quick change, then I'm going to export it again and quickly look over the EPUB in Adobe Digital Editions. Some of the things that we'll note, you'll notice that the table of contents, the prologue, and then we have the chapters that are numbered, and then we have the other, what I call other titles. So the prologue, the epilogue, and the acknowledgments, and about the author. They should all be formatted the same. But there is a little bug in InDesign, so I'm going to show you how to correct this on the table of contents page. It's just a matter of that these are stuck in this numbered list and we need to pull them out. So I'll show you how to correct that. And so what I've done is already cleaned up the InDesign file really well and exported it to an EPUB. And so the first thing that I do after I review it in Adobe Digital Editions to make sure that everything looks correct, and a lot of times I can catch mistakes in there before I go in and open up the file in Dreamweaver. So I'm going to close all this stuff out so it's not bogging us down, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Dreamweaver. So after we export the EPUB, you'll notice this right here is our EPUB file. Right now it is 1.8 megabytes. And in the world of Kindle, KDP, they charge a delivery fee of 15 cents per megabyte. So this file would be about a little bit under 30 cents, probably about 28 cents to deliver. I like to get that down some, but the thing is this particular book contains a lot of images, so it is going to be higher than your normal novel. For novels, I typically like them to be between at least under a half a megabyte, so 500 kilobytes. And that's possible. If it's a short story, it can be much lower than that. You're probably talking about 100 kilobytes. So we want to get that file size as low as possible. I know it sounds kind of silly, but the delivery fee is charged, and that takes away from an author's profit. And an author wants to profit as much as possible. Now, if they're only selling, 10 ebooks, that doesn't add up. But if you can lower the delivery fee by like 10 cents and they sell 100 or even 1,000, that money you're saving them eventually will add up. So that's something to think about. All right, so now that we have exported the EPUB from InDesign, we're going to crack it open. So the process I take to crack it open is I copy the EPUB file that InDesign did and just paste it in the same folder. And then I change the file name to epub.zip. And then I extract all of the files from the zip file. Okay. All right. now that this is unzipped, here is our ebook. As I've told you in previous videos, the ebook consists of 3 pieces in the main folder: the Meta INF, the OEBPS folder, and then the MIME type folder. You'll never need to touch the Meta INF or the MIME type. Everything that you need is going to be in the OEBPS folder. And that includes the CSS, which is the cascading style sheet, and the image directory. And this is all the images that are in the book. And then all of the pages that are in XHTML format. Plus we have a content OPF, which is basically our manifest, our guide. It tells you every little entity that is in the ebook, and it also tells you the order the file should be displayed in the ebook. Then we have the cover, and then we have 2 different table of contents pages, but we also have a table of contents page in the ebook if you generated a table of contents using InDesign. So the toc.ncx is mainly for EPUB 2.0. So if it is an older device that only reads EPUB 2.0, it will refer to this table of contents, whereas a TOC XHTML is a newer version of the TOC NCX, and it is used for EPUB 3.0. All right, so one of the first things I do, because I don't want any crazy blank pages in my ebook, is I just quickly drag and drop. So I have the folder on my other screen. And so what I did is I just selected the first 10 and I drug them, whatever the right word is, over to Dreamweaver just to quickly view. So I usually only do these 10 at a time just to bog it down. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly take a look at these and make sure every page is what it should be. So this is the title page. It has everything. Here is the copyright page. Here is the dedication. And I do this because oftentimes I may have forgotten to put in a break, and I, after the fact, have to split pages, and that drives me crazy. So you'll see that I did that in another video where I showed you how to split the pages. But I prefer not to have to do that, because the less you need to change in the code, the better off you are in terms of validating. So I'm just quickly viewing to make sure all the images are on a page by themselves and all the chapters are on a page by themselves. And this is something you can do depending on how long your ebook is, within 5 minutes or so. You just do a quick search, quick glance at all the pages. I'm dragging and dropping the next 10 pages. And this book has 49 total. So this can take, 5-10 minutes depending, but it'll save you time in the long run from having to split the document. All right, so we are going to chapter. All right, so I think we're good. I'm not going to check any more, just for, I don't want this video to be a long one. All right, so the next thing I do once I've checked all the pages is I open up the CSS file. And I do a lot of cleanup in here, because InDesign just puts a lot of junk in the CSS that we don't necessarily need. First thing I do is remove all the font family names. We don't need those. We only want to search in the current document. I just copy and paste Adobe Garamond Pro, do a find all, and it removes them all. Or it should, if I did it properly. And we want to replace with nothing, so replace all. Okay. Then the next thing I do is I just start going through and removing things that we don't need. We do not need this EPUB hyphens. We do not need color 000. This just tells the color is black. That is the default, so we don't need that. Font family serif will keep. Font size I don't mess with until we get to the chapter text. Font style, anything that says normal, we do not need to keep. So you can get rid of anything that says normal. So what I do is I select that line, I copy it, pull up the find and replace menu, and I replace it with nothing. So it searches the whole entire document and replaces it. Same thing here. It's normal. We do not need it. And any of these page breaks, we do not need it. I wish that InDesign would not put them in. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of all of them because there are many different page break types. So we've got page break after, before, and so what we're going to do, we're going to go from page break, page dash break, and where it says after : auto, we're going to do our little find between these elements, which is parentheses, period, asterisk, question mark, and paren. And then keep the semicolon there, okay? And so what that's going to do is it's going to find all the instances of page break after, auto, everything, and replace them all with a blank. So we don't have to look through the document for all the different ones. We just replace them all. All right, so now we're going to just go to orphans. They don't matter in an ebook, so we're going to replace that. Widows, same thing. And then I'm just going to continue to look. If it says text decoration, we don't, if it says text decoration none, we don't need that. And you'll notice I had did a find and replace for it and it left a blank line. That's because I didn't select it correctly. So what you can do to prevent those blank lines, if you're kind of anal like me and want everything looking just right, select the line where the number is. Do a Control-C, then bring up your find and replace, which is Control-Shift-F, and it brings up the whole line. Replace it with nothing, and that way it replaces the whole line and not just the text that's on that line. All right, so text align center we'll leave in, text indent we'll leave in, text transform, since that's none, we do not need that. We're going to go back up to the top. Now, I like to change my font size. InDesign brings them in at point, some point size. I often just like to go ahead and change it to 1 EM. And that's all the fonts that are related to chapter text. So what we're going to do is come down here to chapter text, do a Control Find, and we're going to replace it with 1 EM and do a replace all. All right. Then again, we don't need this EPUB align. And, once you get in the habit of doing this more and more, you'll realize the things that you can get rid of and the things that you need to keep. But anything that says none, you definitely do not need to keep. And let's see, everything else looks okay. Now, in some cases with the margins, if there's a margin bottom, left, right, top, and they all say 0, for example, here, I will replace all of these and I will just say margin 0. Okay, and it will replace all of those, so that cuts a lot of lines. And I think that's about it. I think that's about all we need to do. Just quickly glance over everything, make sure nothing looks out of place. And that's all we get. That's all we need. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. So now that the OEB, the cascading style sheet is clean and done, we're going to move on to the images. Now, like I said, this book has a lot of images, and when I exported from InDesign, I told it to export at, I'll show you on the export menu. When you export, you can tell it what size to export the images, okay? And it's on conversion settings. So I exported it to 150 progressive high. Now you can definitely change it to 96 or 72. It really doesn't matter. And I do not believe these images were, and because a lot of these were old scanned images, and I do not believe a lot of them were really high resolution to begin with. So, you know, it's up to you how you want to export them. I probably could have exported them at like 96 and got the file size down a little bit smaller. But I think we're going to be okay at this size. What you can do is take a look at the images. We'll view it from details and take a look at the sizes. So we're going to sort by the size. So our cover is 188 kilobytes, which is fine. We do not need it any smaller. This particular image, Ruckman Pond, we could probably make that smaller. And then this image right here, we could probably make smaller, but anything under 100 kilobytes is going to be just fine. So to make these a little smaller, we're going to open up that image in Photoshop, and I'm going to just use the Export As menu. And we are going to say, let's make this a 400 width. Let's make it 500. And we're going to export that. And we are going to save it in the same location, so it'll save it over itself, and we do want to replace it. Let's see what that did with the file size. It dropped it down to 109. Okay, so let's do that again. This time let's go to Export, Export As. We're just shooting to get it under 100 kilobytes. Let's try 450. Export. Export, and then let's take a look at the file size again, 91. So we're good there. Then I'm going to open up this 15, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to export, and currently it is 675 pixels wide, so we can probably do 550. And we are going to export it with the same file name. You don't want to go changing file names at this point because you have to change a lot of stuff in your ebook file if you change the file names at this point. So keep them exactly as is. All right, so that gives us all the images. Oh, nope, it still didn't give us some. All right, so let's try this one again. We just want to get it below that. All right, so let's just go ahead and do 400. Export, Export As. No. Nope. Don't save it again because it'll save it on top of itself. I think that's what I did wrong a few minutes ago. All right, so now everything is under that 100 kilobytes, so we are good. Now, when it comes to file names, now, because I didn't do the interior for this book, and I probably should have taken the time to correct it, but sometimes you don't notice these things until after the fact, and as if I would have done in the interior, these file names would have been a little bit different. But you definitely do not need to save files with any spaces in them. So if you have spaces, replace them with an underscore, and avoid things like parentheses. So if I would have done this, I would have switched this to 1 and 2 and omitted those parentheses, because sometimes they can cause validation issues. And if they do cause a validation issue, we will have to go in and change that, but we will check to see if they do. All right, so now that we have the images, the next thing I do is I just start looking at each page individually. And sometimes you can do this really quick. The first thing that I definitely do is I change the title on every page, but I run a script for this, okay? Because I want the title to be exactly what the book is, the name of the book. But InDesign puts whatever the file name is plus the number of the file. So this is exactly the Boy Behind China Cabinet -5, and that's what it calls the title. All the titles I want to be the same, and I want it to be the name of the book, which is The Space Boy Behind, and that should be The China Cabinet, and then we're going to delete the number. So that's what we want it to be. But because we want to run the search throughout the whole directory of the ebook, and we know that the title is different on every page, we're going to use our little code of the open paren, period, asterisk, question mark, close paren. Okay, so what Dreamweaver is going to do, it's going to search everything that's between the title tag and replace it with this. Okay, but next thing we need to check is to make sure that regular expressions is on, and to change it to the folder that the ebook is in. So we do that, prep, wherever that OEBPS folder is for that book. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do it. We're going to click on replace, and we're going to click yes, and you'll come down here at the bottom and you'll see that it has been replaced in 52 items have been found in 53 documents. So if we look at all our documents, we know that it has replaced it in every single one, so we are good. All right, so now this is the title page. I don't think we need to make any changes to it. We don't need that. And so the next thing I'm going to do is just open up the next one. This is the copyright page. We don't need to do anything with that. This is the dedication page. Everything looks good there. We do not need to do anything with that. All right, here is that contents page. Now, there are a couple of things that are wrong here. You'll notice that when I scroll, there's a whole bunch of white space down below. Okay, that is just InDesign bringing in some empty text frames that I didn't delete into this page. Okay, so if we scroll down to the bottom of the code, the bottom code of this page, you'll notice we have just this empty div tag here. Okay, so we need to delete this out, but we need to be careful to make sure to delete everything and not leave something in or not delete something that we need. So we know we can delete this out because it's an open div tag with a closed div tag, and we know we can delete this one out because this is the closed div tag with the open div tag. So we are safe to delete these 4 lines out because open, close, open, close. Okay, so we're not going to create any errors by deleting too many div tags. Now, if I had deleted this div tag here, I would have created an error, and we do not want that. All right, because there's a div tag up here, and this div tag closes that div tag up there, so we need to keep that in. Now, in looking at this, and this may be a common mistake that you do, and I'll show you how to correct it, I, silly me, did not delete my no break character style. I don't know why. I was a Dumbo. I just didn't delete it. This creates a lot of ugly code that is not needed. So we're going to delete that out across the board. So we're going to keep our folder the same. So if you happen to forget to delete the no break character style that we do not need for ebooks, it's not a big deal if you leave it in. It's really not causing any issues, but it's really dirtying up the code, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell InDesign to search for everything that's between that no break span class character style and then the close of that no break span. Okay, so we are going to search for that, and down here, what we do, if I did a search for it right now, it's going to delete everything between those two span tags. We don't want that because if we look right here, the author is in that span tag and we need that in there. All right, so what we're going to tell InDesign to do is we're going to use $1, which says everything that you found in this first parentheses here, I want you to find this whole thing and replace it with what is in that first parentheses. So essentially, we are just deleting out the span tag, okay? Keep it to the folder because we don't want to have to do this to every single page, and then we are going to replace all. And now all of those span tags go bye-bye, and it keeps the information that we have within that span class. So we did a lot of work right there with just one little quick thing. All right, now, as I said here, that this is a little bug in InDesign when you are working with a table of contents page. And this is the table of contents page within the ebook, and it's not the TOC navigation page. So this is just the regular table of contents page. Some people include them, some people don't. I typically include them. So we are going to realign this epilogue, acknowledgments, and about the author to be like prologue. Okay, so the reason why it does this is because of this list. Okay, so it's still classifying the epilogue, the acknowledgments, and the about the author as a list. So we are going to move this closing list tag to the end of learnings, all right, which is going to be right here. All right, now if you know HTML pretty well, you shouldn't have a problem with this, but if you are new to HTML, this might get a little confusing for you. All right, so the LI tag is each individual list, okay, so each numbered list here. But we have another tag, that's the OL tag, which goes from the beginning of the list to the end of the list. So the next thing we need to do is to move this OL tag to the end of the list. Okay, now look at it. These are all looking funny. Why are they pushed? It looks like half of them are cut off. It's because there's an override in here. Sometimes InDesign does crazy things, so we're just going to delete that override. And there's only 3 of them, so I just go in and delete them. And that lines them back up, and that corrects that issue. So we got prologue, and then epilogue, acknowledgments, about the author, and then we have our numbered list. All right, so this is a common issue in InDesign that I just know that I always have to correct. Now, the next thing we want to do is get rid of these text anchors. They're not needed. They're just kind of cluttering up the text. You don't have to delete them, but my goal is to always have clean HTML in my ebook, so I do delete them. So we're going to do Control C and copy from the period XHTML number sign and then the text anchor all the way to the quotation. Okay, so we're going to copy it into our find menu. I am going to look in the current document because it's only this document, and we are going to number-wise, we know that all of these text anchors are different. They all have different numbers. So we're going to add in our little open paren, period, asterisk, question mark, close paren, where those numbers are different, okay? And then we are going to have that closed quotation mark. So that's what we're going to search for. We're going to replace it with just the XHTML quotation mark. Okay, so what this is going to do, it's going to get rid of all of this information from the pound sign to the last number, and because we do not need that text anchor. All right, so replace all, And now we have a pretty clean TOC page. All right. So let's save this, and then I am just going to open some other ones and take a look at. And you can watch this fast forward high speed if you want, because this is kind of the monotonous part. All right, so, and a lot of this is just opening and looking at the page, making sure everything looks fine and making sure we don't need to make any tweaks to it, and then closing it. And I opened up too many at once. All right, so this page, this is an image page with a caption. There's nothing special about it. We can close that one. This is the prologue. And what I typically like to look for is to make sure there's no blank divs down here that we need to delete. So I typically go to the top, scroll down to the bottom. There's nothing that we need to delete. This is an image page. There's nothing we need to delete. Chapter 1 has everything. There's no empty div tags. There's an image page. Chapter 2, there's no blank. And, you know, this is just my check on everything to make sure everything looks good. And once I get into Sigil, or Calibre actually, I will probably do some more videos on how to use that to make changes. I have been using Dreamweaver to make changes in ebooks for so long. It's what I'm comfortable with, but I know a lot more people use Calibre to make these changes, and you may like that better. So my system isn't necessarily right, and it isn't necessarily wrong. It's whatever you are comfortable with doing. I just know in Dreamweaver, I know how to use my little grep searches, and I'm sure you could do something similar in Calibre. I just am not familiar with it. However, I am willing to learn, so it's one of the things that's on my list of something that I definitely want to look into. All right, so we're just going to quickly go through all of these. And typically, if you don't have any issues in the first several ones, a lot of times you're not going to find issues in any of the other ones. But I still like to check, because you never know what will sneak up on you. All right, so we only have about 20 more pages to review. And then we need to make a couple of tweaks to the content page and the TOC pages, the other TOC pages. All right, so here is our image, another image, another page. There's a long chapter. It's good. Okay, and then the last bunch. And then sometimes when you open up in a bunch of files at once, it thinks a little bit too hard. All right. Okay. And sometimes you'll notice that sometimes it brings in this weird code. And this is something you don't even have to correct. But for some reason, InDesign brought in this weird span hyperlink. It's kind of pointless, so I'm just going to manually delete those. It just has a... It makes no sense. If you understand HTML, you're like, why did it do that? I have no clue. Sometimes InDesign is a little funky with its exports. But now that that is all clean, so we're good. All right, acknowledgements, epilogue. So we're almost done here, people. All right, so those extra div tags that sometimes come in from blank documents, 9 times out of 10, they are going to be at the end of a text frame. So they're either going to be at the end after the copyright page, after the table of contents, or after the last page of the book. That's where those blank extra div tags are going to hang out. So that's something to look for. All right, so now we're going to move on to the last 4 files. So the first one is the content OPF, which is basically the manifest. We have all our metadata. We have a list of every single file that is part of this ebook. So when I mentioned that we may need to go in and change some of the names of some of the files, this is one of the pages that you would need to change it on, and I am not seeing. Oh yeah, see, this is what happens. It puts in this code instead of the parentheses because the parentheses means something else. So it uses this, I guess, oh my goodness, %28 means parentheses, open paren, whereas %29 means close paren. So we'll replace that in the file. So we probably will not have any issues. All right, so the next thing is going to be our spine, which basically is the order of the pages, and then our guide. Now I go in here and usually delete out that container off the table of contents. It's just code that we don't need. And then sometimes I will add in beginning, and this just lets us know where the actual book starts. And I'm going to have it start on 2. So I'm going to tell it that the beginning is document 2. And I'm going to call it text. Oops. Hold on, I want to make sure that's right before. Always forget and always have to look at my cheat notes. So give me 1 second. EPUB. Content OPF. So we're going to, all right. There's several different codes for different things, like you can set it to your epilogue, you can tell it this is your contents, and then wherever you want the document to start, you can say this is the beginning. So, yeah, I'm going to say that's right, and we may get an error in the code when we validate it. So we will title beginning. Oh no, we're crossed here, so it should be type text title is beginning. Okay, all right, so we're going to leave that there. All right, so now we have checked all the pages, and we are going to zip this back up. So we're going to take our MIME type file, send it to a compressed zip folder. Now, if you are on a Mac, you will need to use a little program called eCanCrusher. If you're on a PC, you can use that as well. But again, I'm an old fogey. I do it the same way every time. So I just send the MIME type file to a compressed zip, then I drag and drop the meta INF page, and then I drag and drop the OEBPS page. Okay, now what I can do is I can change the file name cabinet underscore EPUB 01.EPUB. All right. And now we have our EPUB file. Now what I do is I have this program. Eventually, I have too many things open. Called EPUB Checker. This is from Pagina, I think. Pagina EPUB Checker. I recommend downloading this. They keep it really up to date. When you first go on, I think this is Dutch. So if you go scroll down to the bottom, you will find the English version, or you can translate it if you want, and download the Windows download EPUB checker. And it just hangs out on your desktop, and then you drag, hold on, let me bring this over. You just drag and drop your EPUB on top of it, and it brought it up on the other screen. Okay, so it's giving me errors. Okay, so this is good though, because you need to know how to correct errors. Typically, you want to see no errors. You can give yourself a sigh of relief, a pat on the back, whatever you want to do if you get no errors. However, chances are most times if you mess with a lot of the code, it will not, you will have errors. Okay, so the first one, you don't need to read this information. This is just validated, just it's telling us how it's validating. It's validating using EPUB version 3.2 rules. And if you want to know what those are, you can go to GitHub and view what those rules are. We don't care about that. All right, so here's a warning on the content OPF page. I did not input the date properly. So we are going to go in and we're going to open up the content OPF page, which is right here. And we are going to look at the date page because I obviously did not input that correctly. And it didn't want to open it. All right, let's see if it will work this time. Oh, for some reason it's bringing it on my other screen. All right, so here we go. All right, so it just has an extra number and the date. That was my screw up. So the date needs to be in this format. So you have the year dash the month dash the date, and it needs to be 2 digits for the month and date and 4 digits for the year. Okay, I just had some reason put the date as 2020. 2020. That's a little different. All right, so the next thing we are going to look at is the next error. And these are all on the CSS page. Okay, so I obviously made a mistake when I changed something on the CSS page. So we are going to open up the CSS page. And if you look, so it tells you what page it's on. It also tells you what line it's on. So for here, it says the CSS page, line 104. So we're going to go to 104. So go to line 104. And for some reason, it did not delete these out. So we are going to delete them out. Okay. And that probably resolved all these other issues. So we don't need to worry about it checking for anything else. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to copy this file name. We're going to delete this. We're going to select MIME type. We're going to say send to compressed zip folder. We're going to drag the meta INF down, and then we're going to drag the OEBPS down, and then we're going to copy that file name onto the zip file. Then we are going to validate the EPUB again, and it's still giving us an error on that CSS page. So let me go in and see. Let's open this up in Dreamweaver. So obviously I did not look at it close enough. All right, so it'll tell you where, oh, okay, so it's given us an error on our margin because I did not do it properly. So it should be margin : 0 semicolon. All right, so that was my mistake. See what happens when we start messing with the code? You know, one day maybe InDesign will create this beautiful but we're still missing something. This beautiful clean document that we don't have to worry about. So sometimes with the beauty of okay, so what is the difference between the two is beyond me. All right, let's see if, okay, there it goes. It cleared it. All right, I know that probably doesn't make any sense to you, but hopefully that got it. So sometimes the less changes we make in the code, the better off it is. Especially when you're getting started out, because when I first built eBooks, I built them from scratch actually. We had this template that we used in Dreamweaver, and we actually had to copy and paste individual chapters into our template, and it would take hours to do an ebook. And then oftentimes, because we hand coded a lot of it, we had to we would have a lot of file error. We would have a lot of validation errors, and it would be like, oh, and we never had a clean file after doing it. So you don't ever want to have to do that, trust me. But this time we have no errors and we know our EPUB is clean. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Kindle Previewer. And I'm just going to quickly save this as a Mobi file as well, because I typically send both an EPUB and a Mobi to my clients. And I typically let them know that sometimes Kindle will work better with the EPUB. It will produce a smaller file size. Now, I have yet to prove that, but I am going to do a video shortly that may prove that, whether that is a good theory or not. So I'm going to do that on my own books. All right, so now what we did is we dragged the EPUB into Kindle Previewer, and now we're going to export it. And it gives you a couple of different options on what to export it to, but we are just going to do the Mobi, so the person could side load it onto a Kindle device. And we are going to change it to KNDL. Now, it just recently added the KPF, and that may be the better alternative when uploading to KDP. I have yet to verify that yet, but hopefully in my little experiment, we will be able to verify that. All right. So we're going to export it as the Mobi, and what it did is it saved the Mobi in the same file. And you will notice that the Mobi file size is more than double what the EPUB size is. Fun. All right, that's all I got for now. I know hopefully you learned a little bit in this. I think sometimes just seeing somebody do it, things start to click in your mind. So anytime I have any little jobs that I can share, I will definitely share them and show you my process in doing things.